We'll talk about Jimmy Kimmel's firing and unfiring and Trump's threats to take down ABC, Charlie Kirk's memorial and the aftermath of that, Trump's embarrassing speech at the UN, the administration's war on Tylenol, a Trump official allegedly caught red-handed accepting a bribe, all of that and more. Welcome back to the podcast for the 54% of Americans who regularly vote for progress in every election and want to convince their friends and family members to join our majority. This is Majority 54. Jason is on some kind of international, he's on this mysterious international trip. I actually asked ChatGPT, I was like, is my friend winning the Nobel Peace Prize? Because he was like in Oslo or something. And ChatGPT was like, no, your friend is not winning the Nobel Peace Prize, and gave me a bunch of reasons why. But it's rare to have him on an international trip, but we have a repeat co-host, Stephen Webber, coming from the great state of Missouri. He represents his district in the Missouri State Senate. Congratulations again on your victory. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Ravi. This is kind of awkward because Jason said my only job was to advocate for his Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah.
And so I was really just here to do that.
But yeah, I need to find out what he's doing over there. I should have asked him, but I was so curious. I was like, what is Jason hiding from me over here? So it sounds fancy.
He's a man of mystery. So now he's an international man of mystery.
That's great. I like that for him. Well, since our last episode, Jimmy Kimmel was seemingly fired and then unfired. He delivered a monologue last night defending freedom of the press. Let's go to the video.
Gunning for our journalists too. He's suing them. He's bullying them. Over the weekend, his foxy friend Pete Hegseth announced a new policy that requires journalists with Pentagon press credentials to sign a pledge promising not to report information that hasn't been explicitly authorized for release. That includes unclassified information. They want to pick and choose what the news is. I know that's not as interesting as muzzling a comedian, but it's so important to have a free press, and it is nuts that we aren't paying more attention to it.
Did you happen to see the comments that got him quote unquote fired before he got unfired?
I did. Yeah. They were. And if you read them, you never would have ever guessed that would be what would get somebody embroiled in this controversy.
Yeah. I think even especially watching it, it was so anodyne. You know, the thing he said, like, and I'm a huge proponent of like exacting news commentary, and like the literal statement he said actually wasn't false, which was that it was the motivations of the right to do everything possible to paint the shooter as somebody who was not one of them. Now, what it turns out is that person, like, depending on what one of them means, right? That person was very likely leaning liberal at the point where he did that and was motivated out of an ideological opposition to Kirk. Now, that's all context that's not within Kimmel's comments. I think what he literally said was not factually inaccurate. Like he just didn't add the other part of it. If you were a news anchor, he would have or should have, but he was a comedian. And what he was trying to do was set up the second part of this joke, which was where he played Trump like shortly after. Did you see this part where he played the part with Trump shortly after the assassination? It was like Trump is clearly broken up, and it was Trump talking about building the ballroom in the White House. And that was the first part. Not really a funny joke. It was really commentary. So I could see why people like would like have a problem with Kimmel's framing of it. I mean, obviously well short of firing him, but I could see why somebody wouldn't agree with his framing of it. The second part of it was just a funny joke. Like, I just thought it was like, okay, Trump clearly is a sociopath. Like, this guy who he was somewhat close to dies and gets killed, and he sounded like happy-go-lucky and changes the subject immediately to the ballroom. And that was like a setup. That was a joke. That is an appropriate thing for a comedian to do. But he lost his job. A lot of the reporting suggests that he temporarily lost his job, that ABC was pushing him out, not because of business decisions, which is, I think, a myth that the right is pushing, and not because they even had a problem with what he said. It was because they were worried about pressure from the Trump administration.
Yeah, I mean, for context of this, right? Like Trump had called for him, had said Jimmy's next in a tweet several weeks ago when they went after Colbert. So this is not an isolated incident. The comments that he made that I'm not even going to say are inflammatory because that's not even fair. The comments that he made that spawned all this were not about the murder; they were about MAGA's reaction to the murder.
Yes,
right? Like, and that's an important distinction. He was not making even setting up a joke about a terrible murder. He was making a comment or a commentary on the reaction to that murder, which is entirely a fair thing to discuss. This was very clearly a setup. I mean, it's there's that joke about the like a Twitter format where it's like Trump says like I did it, and it's MAGA. Trump didn't do it, and MAGA, Trump's like no, I did it, and that's exactly what happened. It was that Trump was being very transparent, and I know we'll get to more of this about why he was mad at ABC, why he was mad at Jimmy Kimmel, how he's been mad at Jimmy Kimmel. And then there's a whole bunch of folks from MAGA running around insisting that's not what happened. Well, Trump is very clearly telling everybody exactly what happened and why he did it.
Trump just truthed last night the following. I think we're going to test ABC out on this. Let's see how we do. Last time I went after them, they gave me $16 million. This one sounds even more lucrative. So he's basically saying, I don't like that you have a comedian on who is mean to me. So I am going to sue you, and I've successfully extorted money from you in the past. Now, first of all, shame on ABC for even giving him that $16 million. I think this is a lesson to everybody that when you bend the knee, it's not the end, it's the beginning of the bullying behavior. We should know that from high school. Apparently, Bob Iger didn't know that. Hopefully, he knows it now. And I think for the people who are now on the fence about whether to capitulate to the Trump administration, like Harvard, for example, this should be an example of like, look, like you think giving him whatever he's asking for is going to make him go away, but it's like high school. You give that lunch money on a Monday, you could expect that bully to be back on a Tuesday.
100%. And there's a line above that said that the White House was told, the ABC told the White House that Jimmy was canceled.
Ridiculous. So inappropriate.
There's really no purpose for a private corporation to inform the White House of one of their like.
That's and it could be bullshit. Like we have to be clear, it's Trump's words, but like if it is true, like that's a problem.
No, it's whether it's a lie, which is entirely possible because you can't believe any word he says, or whether it's true. It really doesn't actually make any difference. Like if it's a lie, then it's a crazy thing to lie about, and but it still speaks to his motivation and what he thought he was accomplishing here. Which
right.
We hear a lot about freedom of speech and the First Amendment. Like this is literally it, right? This is facing government retaliation over words that you say. That is literally what we're talking about. There's a whole bunch of times when things get ascribed to the First Amendment, freedom of speech, when it's not a freedom of speech, First Amendment issue. Literally what we're talking about is the government chilling speech. This is a picture perfect example of a First Amendment violation.
I have to say, like over the past few weeks is the first time I've thought a lot about my own job. And I've thought about like, am I, because we're on the Midas Network, which is the most prominent liberal YouTube page, like when are they coming for us? When are they going to go after our advertisers? When are they going to try to pressure and sue this company? You know, like it's only, and this is why everybody needs to stick up for each other, right? Yes. I was really happy to see a lot of people in Hollywood putting pressure on ABC. I was also happy to see some comedians sticking up for Kimmel, Rogan in his own Rogan way that, obviously like I would say it much differently. He said something at least about Kimmel and somewhat stuck up for him. And then Kimmel talked about like a handful of Republicans, and I emphasize handful of Republicans and conservatives who stuck up for him. Let's go to this clip.
Maybe most of all, I want to thank the people who don't support my show and what I believe, but support my right to share those beliefs anyway. People who I never would have imagined, like Ben Shapiro, Clay Travis, Candace Owens, Mitch McConnell, Rand Paul, even my old pal Ted Cruz, who, believe it or not, said something very beautiful on my behalf.
I hate what Jimmy Kimmel said. I am thrilled that he was fired.
Oh, wait, no, not that. The other part.
But let me tell you, if the government gets in the business of saying,
what you
we
can
don't
and can't
like
say,
what you, the media, have said, we're going to ban you from the airwaves if you don't say what we like. That will end up bad for conservatives.
I don't think I've ever said this before, but Ted Cruz is right. He's absolutely right. This affects all of us, including him. I mean, think about it. If Ted Cruz can't speak freely, then he can't cast spells on the Smurfs. Even though I don't agree with many of those people on most subjects, some of the things they say even make me want to throw up. It takes courage for them to speak out against this administration, and they did, and they deserve credit for it. And thanks.
So, there's another wrinkle here, though, which is that Nexstar and Sinclair, who distribute ABC, and I guess this is how it works, is like you have ABC, but then you have these local cable companies that distribute it. You probably know more about this from political advertising, but like, I guess like the combination of these two companies is like a huge percentage of the local affiliates. They are still refusing, as of at least my research today, they're refusing to air Kimmel. And Nexstar wants a merger that needs FCC approval. Obviously, that approval is in peril as long as they carry Kimmel, which is, as you pointed out, a direct infringement on the First Amendment. And what the remedy is, like if we had a Supreme Court with a spine and a Supreme Court that was truly objective and about the rule of law, they would be stepping in here. If we had a Congress that in any way took seriously its oversight role, they would step in here. And even the Justice Department under most administrations would be independent enough to point out how inappropriate this is. That's a failure of so many different institutions.
Yeah, you could do a 12-hour podcast on literally the last 3 minutes of what you just played, because some of the issues that were raised are incredibly complex and incredibly important. So first off, and Jimmy said that it was the most important part, and he's right. We're at a point in America where there is a significant percentage of this population, this country's population, that is completely brainwashed and will deny the reality that's in front of them. Like you say the sky's blue and Donald Trump says it's green, they're going to insist to you it's green. And that's a significant and a scary portion of the country. And it's shocking that so many people have gotten there. There is, 54% of the country, as the majority 54 would indicate, that is against, that votes for progress and isn't on board with Trump. There's another 10 or 15% that are Republicans that know this is wrong. And in the fight that we are in for our country right now, which is maybe the most important fight that certainly in my lifetime, in many decades, even before that, what that group of people does, if they decide to side with the brainwashed, or that whether they stand up for their country, very well may determine the future of America and really the direction of Western civilization. So I think that amplifying and supporting the people that we disagree with, as Jimmy did when they speak up, is critically important. Second, like the difference and what makes this a First Amendment issue, right? If people were upset with Jimmy said and advertisers boycotted ABC and they canceled the show, that's not a First Amendment issue. The First Amendment issue is what you described, which is the FCC indicating that things will either be done the easy way or the hard way when it comes to their merger based on what kind of content they put out. That's the First Amendment violation. And that gets into, besides the First Amendment issue, just the corporate control of the media. Sinclair is a company that a lot of the local news that you watch will have a Sinclair package inserted in it that you don't even know is written by Sinclair. It's a very conservative company. They've been doing this for years. I first learned about them from, I think, John Oliver, when he did an expose on them probably 10 or 15 years ago. But the consolidation of corporate media is another important part of this story, that we're vulnerable to this First Amendment violation because there's so much money at stake and there's so few players.
Well, if you think about, like, there's always been this whining about the liberal media, and of course, like the New York Times is liberal. There are, certainly parts of the major networks that have been liberal over time, and newspapers and editors, yada yada. They all tend to sort of skew historically liberal. Where we are now today is an like anything that people said about the liberal media, which, by the way, coexisted with Fox News and the Wall Street Journal and the New York Post and all that, right? There was a conservative media and a liberal media. I buy that a lot of these sort of prominent institutions, just like in universities, skewed more liberal over time, but they weren't alone. right? What we have now, though, is, and certainly the government wasn't involved. Like the government wasn't bullying people or telling them what to think. What we have now is almost every media property is now not just skewing conservative and owned by conservatives and Republicans, but MAGA Republicans who are either explicitly doing the bidding of the president or who are so scared of the president that they're bending the knee. So you think about all the social media institutions pretty much, right? You think about Twitter, owned by Elon Musk, Facebook, Meta, Mark Zuckerberg, who's been kissing Trump's ass and pretending to be MAGA.
Washington Post, owned by Bezos.
Yeah, Washington Post, owned by Bezos. Wall Street Journal, owned by Murdoch. You've now got CBS, Ellison, and CNN, maybe potentially now Ellison, obviously Fox News. The major YouTube channels outside of places like Midas, like, you know, look at the podcasts like Rogan, all that. These are people who endorse Trump. They control the media, right? Like whatever they said about the Democrats controlling media, it was a liberal media bias at certain institutions. I grant that that was true. Now we have just outright state media all over the place, right? It's not like an ideological skew. It's not like, oh, hey, these people tend to be certain wealthy, so they favor tax cuts or whatever, like whatever the Wall Street Journal editorial page used to be. This is just explicitly state media or people who like Iger, who are so afraid of Trump that they do what we just saw. And that is a whole different ballgame. But let's take a break. Before we go, we are... we've been in a partnership at my company called The Branch with Midas, and we did this podcast all about the New Orleans schools 20 years after Katrina. It's a 5-part series called Where the Schools Went, and we are finalists for the Signal Awards. And so you should go and vote for us. We're going to put in the show notes for those of you listening on the podcast where you could vote. It'll take you like 30 seconds. You could vote with your Google account or your iCloud account or whatever. It takes you no time. We have People's Choice Award. Last time when you voted, you got us the Webby Award on a different podcast. So go out there and vote for us now. For folks on YouTube, we'll drop the link right now on YouTube, so you could vote for us. Like with a Midas Mighty, when you all show up, it really makes a difference. And this is a podcast that we've partnered with the Midas Touch Network on. So support the network. And if you haven't listened to it, listen to it. But with that, we'll take a break. And when we come back, we got a lot going on. Trump at the UN, Tylenol, Trump officials allegedly taking bribes, Trump's 180 on Ukraine. We got a lot to talk about when we get back. You've probably seen a million ads for hair growth products and thought, sure, like that actually works. I did too, until I found out that Nutrafol isn't like the rest of them. Nutrafol is physician formulated, clinically tested, and dermatologist recommended. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand, trusted by over 1.5 million people. You could feel great about what you're putting into your body, since Nutrafol hair growth supplements are backed by peer-reviewed studies and NSF content certified, the gold standard in third-party certification supplements. And while many supplements rely solely on ingredient studies, Nutrafol clinically tests final formulations to ensure their efficacy using a variety of hair measurement tools like hair counts and pull tests to assess growth, quality, shedding, and texture. And adding Nutrafol into your daily routine is simple. Purchase online, no prescription required, automated deliveries, and free shipping keep you on track. Plus, with a Nutrafol subscription, you could save up to 20%. You'll have access to free one-on-one naturopathic doctor consults to support you on your hair growth journey, and a Headspace meditation membership is included. So see thicker, stronger, faster growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off their first month's prescription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the code MAJORITY. Find out why Nutrafol is the best-selling hair growth supplement brand at Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, code MAJORITY. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code MAJORITY. When we relaunched this podcast, it seemed like we had to figure it all out on our own. Scripts, setups, filming schedules, logos. It was super overwhelming, and every day it seemed like we had a new decision that needed a new answer. And when you're starting off with something new, it seems like your to-do list keeps growing every day with new tasks, and that list can easily begin to overrun your life. Finding the right tool that not only helps you out, but simplifies everything can be such a game changer. For millions of businesses, that tool is Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the US, from household names like Mattel and Gymshark to brands just getting started. The Midas Touch Network is proud to have their own store using the Shopify platform. You can get started with your own design studio with hundreds of ready-to-use templates. Shopify helps you build a beautiful online store to match your brand style, accelerate your content creation. Shopify is packed with helpful AI tools that write product descriptions, page headlines, and even enhance your product photography. Now get the word out like you have a marketing team behind you. You could easily create email and social media campaigns whenever your customers are scrolling or strolling. And best yet, Shopify is your commerce expert with world-class expertise in everything from managing inventory to international shipping to processing, returns, and beyond. Turn your business idea into with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/majority. Go to shopify.com/majority, shopify.com/majority. So we've talked in the past few weeks about how the Kirk assassination, I think, has captured the attention of a lot of Americans in a way that very few political events have, and it's not
like the Melissa Hortman assassination,
right? Unlike that, and we've spent some time talking about that.
Right.
And in my life, at least, it's not just conservatives. Like I've been having some discussion with some liberals about it and the meaning of it all. Jason and I have talked about this before on the podcast. Clearly, it was an evil act, and I think the messaging at this memorial was mixed. You had people, this huge memorial event that was watched by so many people. You had Charlie Kirk's widow, who, from all of I've seen from it, gave a totally appropriate, in some cases very moving speech about forgiveness. And then you had the president come on right after that and say this.
In that private moment on his dying day, we find everything we need to know about who Charlie Kirk truly was. He was a missionary with a noble spirit and a great, great purpose. He did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent, and I don't want the best for them. I'm sorry. I am sorry, Erica. But now Erica can talk to me and the whole group, and maybe they can convince me that that's not right, but I can't stand my opponent.
So, we just come to accept that this is the leader of the free world, so-called, and we'll get to the way he talked at the UN. I mean, he just continues to be
the leader.
Yeah, he just continues to be an embarrassment. And he's saying everything out loud now. Like, he's not trying to hide. He's acting like somebody who has complete impunity, because all available evidence seems to suggest he does. This event and the just general aftermath of Kirk's assassination has no doubt fueled a surge of attention to Turning Points USA. They have gotten, according to Kyle Tharp over at FWIW, who tracks, it's a progressive organization that tracks social media trends, says that the various accounts for Turning Points USA have added more than 30 million net new followers. I mean, that is an insane amount. And then you have government officials explicitly putting their fingers on the scales here. This is Ryan Walters, who is the superintendent of the state of Oklahoma.
I'm excited to announce today that every Oklahoma high school will have a Turning Point USA chapter. We have seen the outpouring from parents, teachers, and students that want to be engaged in the meaningful work going on at Turning Point.
I mean, are you familiar with this guy, this superintendent in Oklahoma?
I'm familiar with Oklahoma and their education policy, broadly speaking, in general. Not him specifically, but I know that a lot of crazy stuff's come out of Oklahoma in the last few years.
Yeah, he's the guy who wanted the Trump Bibles in all the classrooms, which I guess has happened. I haven't really followed up on it, but like, it's like we are at the point now where whatever cartoon version they had of liberals intervening in schools and pushing ideological agenda, they're doing it 10 times more than even what their fantasy was, and we're just watching it happen. Obviously, like pushing an ideological agenda like that in schools should have all kinds of checks against that. You know, whether it's the Oklahoma legislature, the governor appoints the superintendent, or the courts. And again, here we're waiting for institutions to intervene and do the right thing. You know, we played the clip of Trump at this rally. By all accounts, the worst speech was Stephen Miller, who is being accused of cribbing from, I think, Goebbels. And you know, we're being told we can't call people Nazis, yet this guy's allegedly cribbing from Goebbels. And if you didn't even know he was cribbing from Goebbels, you could get a gist of it by just this short part of the clip.
The storm whispers to the warrior that you cannot withstand my strength. And the warrior whispers back, I am the storm. Erica is the storm. We are the storm. And our enemies cannot comprehend our strength, our determination, our resolve, our passion. Our lineage and our legacy hails back to Athens, to Rome, to Philadelphia, to Monticello. Our ancestors built the cities. They produced the art and architecture. They built the industry. Erica stands on the shoulders of thousands of years of warriors, of women who raised up families, raised up city, raised up industry, raised up civilization, who pulled us out of the caves and the darkness into the light.
What the hell is he talking about, Stephen? Honestly.
So first off, I think I heard that Storm Warrior clip like when I was like 16, and I thought, wow, that's really cool. And then it was like, it's just a cringy thing. Like it was like when I was like 14 or 15 and I first heard that, I thought, oh, that's like a really good quote. And now you're like, dude, that's weird, man. Like that's just a cringy thing to say. And then he follows it up with some like, I don't know if you saw Missouri Senator Eric Schmidt the other day. He gave a speech very similar to that. This is before the Kirk stuff. And it really is a very clearly a defining of America that includes certain white people from certain backgrounds and doesn't include I mean, Eric Schmidt really said it, and Stephen Miller did too. They are excluding people from America and the American dream. They're not even doing it historically accurately, right? Like, right. I think Monticello was built by slaves. So like, just straight up historic inaccuracy.
Right. I mean, we've got to start piecing this all together and doing two things at once. One is fighting back. Obviously, there's just so many fronts to fight. So I am sympathetic to people who feel overwhelmed by it all, but we just got to do our best. And obviously, the midterm elections are by far the most important way to fight back. The other thing we need to do is articulate a different vision of America. And continue to push that forward-looking vision, a vision that's inclusive, right? I do think that there's this sort of sense out there that we just need somebody who's just going to use the same kind of bravado as Trump and all that. My theory continues to be that people will be worn out by all of this, by all the key moments, both the midterm and the presidential election, and that, you know, you don't have to speak platitudinally. You know, it's not 2008. We don't need to use like the soaring rhetoric, but I think, you know, speaking honestly, and succinctly and in very granular, specific ways about what it means to be a community. What does it mean to be moral? What does it mean to follow the law? What does it mean to tolerate the viewpoints of people who are different, and set a different tone and a contrast is going to be essential for the project of Democrats, and the project of Democrats is going to be essential for the project of this country. Now, in a huge 180, Joe Rogan smells a conspiracy here with Kirk, and there's no really easy way to tee this up. We'll just play just a little bit of how he's been talking.
They said that he took it apart and then put it back together again. Shut the fuck up. Do you know how much time it would take to do that if you were highly skilled?
To disassemble a gun.
To disassemble a rifle so that you can get it in a backpack. And by the way, not going to fit.
Not going to fit in a backpack.
And then somehow or another reconnects it once he gets off the roof? What? I don't buy the reassembly. I do not buy that. They said he had a screwdriver up there. Fuck yourself.
A screwdriver?
Yeah, you need more than a screwdriver. You need multiple tools. Okay, you need Allen wrenches.
Away.
You need like specific gunsmith tools. It's complicated. Oh, I've got a video.
Well, I'm not exactly sure who's conspiring. I did read enough to know that he's got some key details wrong about when the gun was unassembled or whatever. But it's just like I'm just sharing that to say like that's the tenor of discussion in those corners.
Well, unfortunately, it dovetails perfectly with something the terrible thing that happened today. There was a shooting at an ICE detention facility. I don't know if you've been on Twitter in the last couple hours, but
I've not.
So Kash Patel tweeted out a picture of some unfired bullets that were still like that were not loaded in a magazine, and he tweeted out and said one of them says anti-ICE written on it, and he's saying this is evidence that this terrible shooting this morning was politically motivated. He specifically says that, and whether it is or not, we don't know. This has literally happened a couple hours ago, but it is not normal for the head of the FBI to just be tweeting out random pictures that were taken maybe somewhere. I mean, this morning, like. And what it is indicative of is there you go is not trying to either solve the crime, not trying to increase public safety, not trying to lower the temperature in America. But the head of the FBI, when there's a shooting, his first instinct is, how do I blame this on my political opponents, who enemies, as Stephen Miller called them, people that he hates, is what the president said. And that is more important to them right now than solving crimes, preventing crimes, reducing shootings or murders or anything like that, is making sure that the blame gets affixed immediately on their political opponents before there's any actual concrete. And what's happening is, JD Vance, within a couple hours, was blaming, was assigning political blame before they even, I think, knew who had done the shooting. And it is creating an incredible amount of distrust. And I being in the Missouri Senate, I work with a lot of Republicans. I talk to a lot of Republicans. And I think a lot of people who are listening to this probably are like me and like, how can they possibly be believing all the stuff they're hearing? And I think a lot of the answer is the media algorithm is so skewed that that's all the information they're being fed. And so you've got tens of millions of people who are only being fed certain amounts of information, and the people feeding it to them are not concerned whether it's accurate. They're not concerned with the long-term implications of it. They're not concerned with what it means for public policy or for the American people. They're only concerned with making sure tens of millions of people tie a bad act to their political opponents at all costs immediately. And it's really that's a major, major challenge we're facing in this country right now.
Yeah. And he could be right about what's on that bullet. I don't know. I mean, this is the thing.
He absolutely could be right.
We don't know anything, right?
He'll be right in a few days too. He doesn't need to do it hours. He could be right, but that's not the point.
The thing is, he should be cautious because in the aftermath of the Kirk assassination, we all witnessed him incorrectly say they got the perpetrators, and then he went to Congress and gave one of the most petulant, if not the most petulant, defiant testimonies before Congress, totally disrespectful. And nobody should be watching that, whether you're conservative or liberal, and saying, I feel better knowing this guy's in charge of our safety in this country. The guy seemed like a lunatic. Like that his behavior in front of Congress would be enough to sink any low-level appointee under any previous version of this. But we're at the point now where just unhinged behavior like that is rewarded. One last thing about the aftermath of Kirk. Trump, posted on social media that, he's been posting to Pam Bondi again, like you talk about like inappropriate public posting, all this kind of stuff. He posts directly, and he's not even trying to hide it. He said to the Attorney General, "We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and credibility," in reference to nothing being done about indicting Comey, Letitia James, Adam Schiff as political enemies. And so this is where we are. He said, "What about Comey, Adam Schiff, Letitia?" Like, he's calling on the Attorney General to prosecute his political enemies. Mind you, these are the people who said that because Bill Clinton and the Attorney General, who was it at the time, were on the same tarmac, and Bill Clinton boarded her plane, that somehow that act was like was Watergate level offense, but yet this guy's tweeting in public view. Eli Honig, former federal prosecutor, went on CNN to talk about this.
This is about as straightforward as it gets. Look, we try to not overuse this unprecedented word. Mm-hmm. This is truly unprecedented. Never before have we had a president overtly and publicly instructing his attorney general, "I need you to indict my political enemies." And why this is such a big deal is what has defined DOJ, what has made DOJ over the decades and centuries, Republican, Democratic administrations alike, is a degree of independence when it comes to that prosecutorial function. And so it's incredibly dangerous if you have a president who is ordering an AG, who knows nothing about the evidence, by the way, the president, to say, go after these people, indict them, evidence be damned. That is a red line that's being crossed.
And as part of this, one U.S. attorney has been removed, another said to be being brought in. What does it do to put a new prosecutor on this?
Well, it does nothing to improve the quality of the evidence against Letitia James or any of the other people. And this is an important point. We don't know here in the public all of the evidence against Letitia James, right, let's say, for example. However, we do know a couple things. One, a team of career prosecutors, the people who were running this case for months, looked at it and ultimately concluded there's not a viable criminal charge here. More to the—
So, I mean, there's nothing really to add to this other than like, this is just, it is an avalanche of illegal behavior that we're dealing with here. On that sunny note, we're going to take one more break. We're going to talk about Trump at the UN. We're going to talk about Tylenol. If we have time, we'll talk about Ukraine and this Tom Homan scandal as well when we get back. Have you ever fallen in love with a couch, lamp, or rug online and then your soul leaves your body when you see the price tag? Well, I'm going to let you in on a secret called dupe.com. It's ridiculously easy to use, and all you have to do is type dupe.com / before any product URL, and it instantly shows you similar or more affordable alternatives. And these aren't sketchy knockoffs either. And here's the thing that most people don't realize. Most furniture sold online is mass produced in the exact same factories. And those factories then sell to brands under different names who then list them for different prices. And dupe.com automatically lists these less expensive alternatives for you, so you're not overpaying just for some brand name. Dupe is one of the most viral shopping hacks on TikTok. Millions of people have already used Dupe to save money, and it's 100% free to use. So if you think about that $5,000 cloud sofa you don't think you can justify, the beautiful mid-century dresser you've had bookmarked forever, Dupe will help you find similar items, sometimes even the same item for 60, 70, or even 80% off. With dupe.com, you can finally decorate the house of your dreams without going broke. Dupe.com isn't just about furniture either. Dupe works for fashion, shoes, jewelry, and more. And dupe.com really is so easy to use. Just type dupe.com / before any product URL in your browser, and boom, it instantly finds you less expensive alternatives. They even have an app and a browser extension you could download. No account required, no sign up required. It's completely free to use. So stop wasting money on brand names and start saving with dupe.com today. Ever feel like managing your business finances is a full-time job on top of your actual full-time job? Me too. That is until I started using Found. Found is a business banking platform and lets you effortlessly track expenses, manage invoices, and prepare for taxes. You can even set aside money for different business goals and control spending with different virtual cards. I've saved so much money because Found helped me identify tax write-offs, and I've saved so much time that I can now devote to chasing new opportunities and doing the work I enjoy. And by the way, other small businesses are loving Found too. One Found user said, quote, "Found is going to save me so much headache. It makes everything so much easier: expenses, income, profits, taxes, invoices even." And Found has 30,000 five-star reviews just like that. That's an incredible amount. And people write things like, I use this and you should too. This is personal for me. I have, you listen to this podcast long enough, you know that I run a couple different businesses on the side, little small businesses for media, for books, etc. And this just makes that work so easy. So open a Found account for free at FOUND.com. Found is a financial technology company, not a bank. Banking services are provided by Lead Bank, member FDIC. Don't put this one off. Join thousands of small business owners who have streamlined their finances with Found. All right. Well, Trump went to the UN. I used to work at the UN in the first Obama administration, and he got upset because when he tried to ascend the elevator, it stopped. I'll spare everybody that clip. I've been the escalator. I've been up that escalator in question hundreds of times, and he, I think, alleges sabotage. It's possible, actually. The UN is filled with all kinds of espionage and shenanigans. So, who knows? Fun fact is, I once tracked Muammar Gaddafi up that escalator because I was the fortunate aide who was tasked with ensuring that Obama and Gaddafi didn't get close enough for Gaddafi to try to shake his hand. And so I was constantly monitoring his whereabouts. Trump also gave a speech to the UN, and he used the occasion to talk about his hurt feelings over not getting the deal to renovate the United Nations building. Let's just play a part of this clip. I can't imagine we want to play it too much. It's just too embarrassing.
And we have others that we're working on, and you know that. Many years ago, a very successful real estate developer in New York, known as Donald J. Trump, I bid on the renovation and rebuilding of this very United Nations complex. I remember.
So, I mean, this is what he was talking about. I mean, there was more and so many horrible things. But like this week, I think this is going to be what weeks are going to be like for a while. It's just the sheer amount of stupid and scary. It's hard to prioritize at this point, but people could watch that speech if they want. He embarrassed us on the
his argument for those that his argument literally was, I tried to get the contract to rebuild the UN, but they went with somebody else. And that's when I realized the UN was idiots and it's a dumb organization because I didn't get the contract 40 years ago. Yeah. And so we should discredit this entire international organization because I didn't get the contract. That's literally his whole entire rant.
Yeah. So I honestly, I don't know what to say about that. We also got an announcement about Tylenol and links between Tylenol and autism. Let's get through a couple of these things first. One is they're hinging. First of all, I've talked about this before RFK even started his job. I said they're going to be cooking the books on all the so-called science to support whatever pet theories RFK has. This is one of them. They are cherry picking data and studies to create alarm over obviously, among the most common over-the-counter medications that we've got. And am I using that term over-the-counter? Whatever, the ones that you buy without a prescription.
That's right.
And he's sowing a moral panic, and people could read about the science, but basically what happens is there was a study that showed a correlation and then between Tylenol use and autism, but then it was followed by a bunch of studies that got to the question of whether there was causation, right? Because look, we all understand statistics. Just because two things happen simultaneously doesn't mean one causes the other.
Donald Trump says a lot of dumb things while he breathes, but that doesn't mean that breathing causes you to say dumb things.
Yeah, like a good example is like, football, professional football happens to occur shortly after church often. It doesn't mean church creates or causes football games, right? Like, but what they did was twin studies and a bunch of other things that debunked this, right? Isaac Saul put it succinctly from Tangle, which is a sort of objective, nonpartisan news site. He said the Tylenol causing autism stuff is straight up nonsense. Number one, when they study this in siblings, the correlation disappears, meaning it's not Tylenol. Two, Tylenol use during pregnancy has declined over time, so it definitively doesn't explain the increase. There was a helpful New York Times article where they talked to a few experts. Dr. Tager Flussberg, who's the founder of the Coalition for Autism Scientists, said the following: in some respects, this was the most unhinged discussion of autism that I've ever listened to. It was clear that none of the presenters knew much about autism other than mother's lived experience and nothing about the existing science. This may be the most difficult day of my career. Author Eric Garcia said, same here. The other comment that hit was Marty McCary, the FDA commissioner, saying, if you've seen a kid with autism, with severe autism, it's hard to watch. Kids get frustrated. They get angry. They cry, et cetera, et cetera. It's hard to watch. And he says, we can end the suffering. It may be entirely preventable. I can go on. I actually interviewed Marty McCary right before he took this job, and I might have said it here, but I certainly said it on the last debate. I was like, hey, I want to give this guy a chance. He was a Johns Hopkins physician. He had a really interesting book about things like peanut allergies and hormone replacement therapy, and everything in that book seemed like super interesting and valid to me, and I wanted to give him a shot. But now he's, I think, obviously engaged in BS here and politics, and like it suits me well to to try to go out of my way and give somebody the benefit of the doubt who's entering this administration. For him, it was like, here's somebody who's so credentialed and had such a great track record at Johns Hopkins. And obviously it's super disappointed to see him up there. This is obviously not a public health podcast. I think people generally understand what we're getting at here. Let's talk about one last issue here, which is.
Can I jump and say one thing?
Oh yeah, go for it.
We're looking at the show today. There's almost so much to talk about. We can't even get to all of it, and some of that is sort of just maybe the coincidence of how society unfolds, but a lot of this is intentional. And the reality is that I think Donald Trump has a secret, and it's becoming increasingly well known, and that's that the president of the United States, Donald Trump. There's a lot of reason to believe that he systematically participated in the rape of children, right? That he was he was good friends with Epstein. He was going to his island. That Donald Trump is very likely a pedophile. And, I said this on this podcast maybe 2 months ago, and it was kind of shocking. I said it on the Senate floor a couple weeks ago, and nobody even reacted because everybody's like, yeah, that's probably true. And the reality is that a few weeks ago, we were getting pretty close to cracking that open. There was a lot of pressure that was building on the left and on the right to release the full unredacted Epstein files, to fully explain why their special treatment for what was it Ghislaine Maxwell or whatever her name is. And the reality is that he is desperately trying to bury the story of him potentially going down to rape children, because he knows that might be the only thing that can cause him to lose part of his base. Now, part of his base is going to be okay with it. They're going to get by it. But there's a lot of people, even in his own base, that are concerned that would go too far. And I think he is desperate to hide those actions and to make sure that people don't find out about what he and Epstein were up to and why he was saying these things and all the women that have accused him of sexual assault and rape. And so I think you're seeing a lot of really dumb stuff being said because he's desperately trying to change the conversation from how Donald Trump, was likely out there raping children. And it's really, really important that we drive that point home. And it's really, really important that we don't let go of that story, because as bad as all these scandals are, and the abridgment of free speech and the corruption and the extortion and the youth prosecuting your enemies, all of that is beyond the pale and bad to a level that we haven't seen in this country in a long, long time. But the fact that the president of the United States might have engaged in intentional, systematic rape of children would be beyond anything this country has has seen from his political leadership. And we have an obligation to stay on that and keep hammering that until we get answers.
Well, I think that's probably a good place to end here. We could talk about this guy, Tom Homan, and people could look it up. There's a official in the Trump administration who seems like he took a $50,000 bribe, and the Trump administration doesn't really seem very concerned about it. And initially, they didn't even deny it, and now they're trying to deny it. But it was an FBI sting, and it looks like they're burying this. It was an FBI sting that happened before he came to the administration, and basically they were paying him. The FBI poses business executives saying, "If we give you $50,000, could you give us favorable treatment?" And he took the money. Where's the money? Like, who the hell knows? Like, but obviously, but you gave us a more global ending there, and I think whatever is going on with the Epstein files, I've talked about it previously. What I think, but it's a range of possibilities. I'm like a little bit less confident that there's anything like super smoking gun-ish about it. I think there's no doubt there's something really bad in those files. The question is like how bad. But the question is, you could be right. No, none of us really know because they aren't releasing it. And like you raise a good point, which is all this like ratcheting up, which things have been bad, but things have gotten considerably worse. Talk about correlation. Things have gotten considerably worse as the Epstein stuff has heated up.
It's been dribbling it out, and that's when Trump really cranked up the crazy, even to unforeseen levels. And I think that those things are not a coincidence.
Well, on that sunny note, thank you, Stephen, for joining us today. Everybody, thank you for listening. Go out there and vote for us on the Signal Awards. We'll put that in the show notes. Oh, and if you're trying to follow, I think a lot of longtime listeners know this. I'm in Italy learning to cook, and I'm also writing globally about like non-political stuff in my newsletter. You can check it out at realravigupta.substack.com. That's realravigupta.substack.com, and we can put that in the show notes too. Remember, we all have a platform. Make sure to use yours today.